Knobi Cooks presents to you pumpkin beef pizza. This pizza with a sauce made from pumpkin, special toppings like ground beef, savoy cabbage and mountain cheese is the perfect warming dish for cozy feelings in fall and winter. If you enjoy my content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. To prepare this special pizza you need shallots, ground beef, a small Hokkaido pumpkin, savoy cabbage, dough for 2 pizzas, some flour, a blender, a hand blender, 1 egg, a couple of garlic cloves, some mountain cheese, cream, mustard, a couple of spices, a baking tray, a pot for boiling the pumpkin, and of course another baking tray. We will start by preparing the ingredients for our sauce. For this we will dice our shallots into rough chunks, and afterwards we will do the same with our garlic cloves. Neither one needs to be super fine since we will puree them later on anyway. And once we have done that, we will put both shallots and garlic cloves into our pot with water. I have preheated the water so we can already start cooking our ingredients. In addition to preheating the water, I have also added some vegetable broth into the pot. It will serve as a base seasoning for our sauce, though it is not mandatory. You can always season later on. Next up is our pumpkin. First we will halve the pumpkin so we can take out the kernels. Depending on your strength, as well as the type of knife you are using, this might prove either very easy or very difficult, so be careful here. Once you have cut your pumpkin in half, simply take a large spoon and scoop out both the kernels and the stringy flesh in its center. Those you can put away, we won't need them for the sauce. I am using a Hokkaido pumpkin here because its skin is edible, which makes handling it very handy because we don't have to peel it first. In addition to that, in my experience, Hokkaido pumpkins tend to be smaller than other types of pumpkins, which makes them very suitable for this sauce. You are probably looking for a pumpkin which has a weight of roughly 500 grams to a kilogram, which in turn corresponds to roughly 1.1 to 2.2 pounds. And if you cannot get your hands on a small pumpkin, don't use all of it for this dish. Put some of it aside. And then after hollowing out your pumpkin and cutting away its stem, you can start dicing it. For this, first cut it into slices. They don't need to be super fine. And as soon as you've got your pumpkin diced up, carefully put it into the pot with water so you don't end up splashing hot water all around in your kitchen. Do this for both halves and then simply set up your pot for boiling. I would say the pumpkin needs to boil somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, though we will basically boil it until we have prepared all of the other ingredients for our pizza and have rolled out our pizza dough, which, depending on how versed you are in cooking, should take roughly that amount of time. But be careful so your pot does not boil over while you are distracted with preparing the other ingredients. With that said, there's only one thing left to do before we put the lid on. Let's give our pumpkin, the shallots and the garlic a good stir before we move on. Now we will prepare our mountain cheese for shredding. For this, simply cut it into strips first and then dice it into rough dices afterwards. And as soon as you have done that, put the cheese into your blender and it is now ready for shredding. For mountain cheese, I am either using German mountain cheese from the Allgäuer, some Swiss mountain cheese like Appenzeller, or some mountain cheese from Austria. And if you cannot get your hands on cheese labeled mountain cheese, go for a cheese with a strong taste and preferably where the cows were fed herbs and hay. So now we will blend our cheese. Depending on the type of blender you have, go for some smaller chunks, though the shredded cheese shouldn't be too fine. Try to go for shredded cheese the size you can buy in the supermarket, or maybe a little bit smaller like you can see in my case. Next we will prepare our savoy cabbage. The cabbage will end up as topping and we will simply cut its leaves into smaller pieces. To do this, first pluck away some of the outer leaves from your whole cabbage. You should aim for about 300 to 500 grams, which corresponds to roughly 0.6 to 1.1 pounds. Then simply lay the leaves on top of each other and cut them into pieces like you can see me doing here. And that's the whole trick. In between steps, show your pumpkin some love and give the contents of your pot a stir from time to time. They will be very happy about it. Next up, we will preheat our oven to 200 degrees Celsius or 392 degrees Fahrenheit top and bottom heat. We do this for pre-baking our pizza dough. This ensures our pizza dough will not get soggy from our pumpkin sauce. Speaking of which, by now you can probably turn off the heat on your pumpkin. And now we will prepare our pizza dough. As in all of my other pizza videos, I'm using homemade pizza dough. If you don't know how to prepare a pizza dough yourself, go and check out my video on how to prepare a rustic or normal pizza dough. And if you are preparing the pizza dough after my recipe, go for a more rustic version for this pizza. It really fits well to the pumpkin sauce and the hearty toppings. Okay, enough advertisement. Let's get back to the cooking instructions. Take half of your pizza dough, form it into a ball and then roll it around in flour on your countertop. As soon as it's covered in flour all around, press it into a rough pizza shape with your hands. Afterwards, stretch it into its final pizza shape using as much flour as you need. I, like always, am using a rolling pin for this. Simply roll over your pizza dough from this side and that side until it has the rough shape of your baking tray. Afterwards, simply put it into your baking tray, which you should lay out with parchment paper. And once it is in there, simply stretch it out into its final shape. Then repeat the whole process for the other half of your pizza dough. If you are in a hurry or don't want to prepare your own pizza dough, you can also buy ready-made pizza dough in the supermarket. To my knowledge, this dough usually comes already rolled out and with parchment paper attached, so you really save some work. The trade-off is of course that your pizza dough may not be as good as your homemade pizza dough, though that's up for you to decide. If you have finished rolling out your pizza dough, maybe clean up your countertop if you have, like me, only one countertop available to you. This way you can continue with this recipe without any major interruption. And then simply put your two rudimentary pizzas into your oven and let them bake away happily. In the next step we will prepare our ground beef. For this, put the ground beef, an egg, salt, pepper and a good spoonful of mustard into a bowl. You don't need to mix the ingredients yet, since we will later need them anyway before putting them onto the pizza. This way you only need to get your hands dirty once, which is great. And as you can probably tell, I'm using the same bowl I have kept my pizza dough in before. This way there are simply less dishes to do later on, which is also great. And maybe one small note on seasoning your ground beef. Don't put too much pepper or salt into it, since many of our other ingredients will also be seasoned. Though if you ask me, go for a good spoonful or maybe 2 spoonfuls of mustard, because the mustard taste in combination with all of the other spices and ingredients is simply heavenly. Okay, and now there's only one topping left we need to prepare, and that's our pumpkin sauce. To prepare the sauce, first drain away the water in your pot, and after that put pumpkin, shallots and garlic into a large beaker. It really should be quite big, since we will later add cream and we will also puree everything in it. Though you can of course also use a blender if you have one. I only have the small blender which I already used for my cheese, which is why I need to use my hand blender for pureeing my pumpkin. Though before we puree everything, we first gonna want to season it. For this, add some salt, though not too much if you have, like me, added vegetable broth before. After that, add some ground black pepper and some curry powder into the mix. I am using a curry powder called English curry, which I think contains lots of curcuma, garlic and a blend of other spices. So basically this should be Indian inspired curry powder and not East Asian type curry like Thai curry. And from here on your steps may vary depending on whether you're using a hand blender or simply a blender. So in my case I will first puree the pumpkin and the other ingredients a little bit. And once the puree starts forming, I will add the cream into the mix. At this point I do have to be careful to not splash around with cream in my kitchen. And when it comes to pureeing or blending your pumpkin, make sure you end up with a homogeneous mass. If you see any dices or chunks remaining, give the ingredients another round of blending. We want to end up with a smooth sauce we can easily put on our pizza and spread it without any great hassle. You should end up with a sauce looking more or less like the one you can see in this video, with a strong orange to maybe yellowish tint. Since the sauce is now also done, we can start putting it and the other toppings on top of our pizza. For this, take the pre-baked pizza out of your oven. You can leave the oven set as it is currently. Next up, put half of your sauce on each of the pizzas. And then gently spread the sauce with a spoon or a spatula. You will want to make sure that the sauce is about equally thick everywhere. And now what are your first thoughts? Isn't the pizza with yellow pumpkin sauce just looking crazy? Every time I come back to this recipe, I am simply surprised on how crazy this yellow sauce looks. Because I am always thinking to myself, this might as well have ended up as pumpkin soup. But it actually is a pizza sauce for real. Just crazy. Next up is our ground beef. And now its time has come to knead it into a dough together with the other ingredients. And as soon as you have done that, simply spread smaller or larger chunks of the ground beef on your pizza. Only make sure you don't end up with one large blob of ground beef in the middle of one of your pizzas. That wouldn't be a good idea. Anyway, only 2 ingredients remain, one of which is our savoy cabbage. Here simply take the small pieces or leaves of your savoy cabbage and spread them equally between the 2 pizzas. I know it might seem a little much at first, though the savoy cabbage will shrink during the baking process. And if you really think some of it is too much, then simply leave it away. And now we have almost done it. We only need to spread our shredded mountain cheese on top of both of the pizzas. Here the same goes as with the other ingredients before. Take the shredded mountain cheese and then simply spread it equally between the 2 pizzas. And that's it, the rest of the work will be taken over by our lovely oven. Simply put both of your pizzas into your oven and then bake them both for about 10 to 15 minutes. And if you need to, in the meantime, swap out the top and bottom baking tray, so both pizzas get browned and baked equally. Though decide yourself what is best for your 2 pizzas. And then, after about 10 to 15 minutes, we will now turn on the air circulation. And after probably another 10 minutes of baking, your pizza is done and can be served. Which brings us to the end of today's episode of Knobi Cooks. I hope you enjoy this dish as much as I do. And if you have prepared it yourself, then let me know down below in the comments how it tasted. In my opinion, the combination of all these different fall or winter ingredients simply add up to something very tasty. And in addition to that, who has heard of a pumpkin pizza out there before? You can surprise your friends and family with this extraordinary dish for sure. But now the time has come to say goodbye. I am Knobi and I see you in the next video.